Have you ever questioned the story you've been told about Jesus? If you still believe he came to earth to establish the Christian religion, then perhaps it's time to look again. And if you've been taught that the Bible contains all of the Gospels, then you've been deceived not once but twice. So what is the truth? There was a sacred path. Jesus walked a path of inner awakening. He taught it quietly to those who were ready. But this path was later banned, and systematically erased by empires seeking control. They didn't want people to awaken, they wanted them to obey. Jesus never asked to be worshipped. He didn't come to create icons or hierarchies. His real message was radical and liberating: become what I am. That phrase alone holds a secret capable of transforming everything. The lost texts, especially the Gnostic Gospels, reveal that this message was never about blind faith, but about remembering who you truly are. You were not supposed to find this message, but here you are, which means you are ready to hear 10 hidden truths that could forever change how you see Jesus and yourself. Because once you glimpse the real message he brought, the old story begins to fall apart. You may start to realize that the Jesus you were taught about was not the Jesus who walked this earth. What if the religious image of Jesus was created to cover up something far more powerful? What if he didn't come to rule but to awaken rulers? What if his mission wasn't to save you from yourself but to remind you of what you've always been? Not broken, not lost, just asleep. You didn't fall, you simply forgot. You forgot the light from which you were created. You forgot the divine spark that still lives in your soul. That inner fire, the one that once burned brightly in your being, it's still there, waiting. This is the gospel they buried beneath mountains of gold, guilt, and fear. Not a gospel of sin and shame, but one of remembrance, of knowing God not as someone above you, but within you. So when Jesus said, "I and the Father are one," he wasn't placing himself above you. He was handing you a mirror, a reflection of what is possible. What I do, you will do also, and greater. This is not blasphemy. This is your forgotten inheritance. The question you should ask yourself is, when was the last time you were reminded of it by a church they were unable to? Mostly due to the fact that you would quit kneeling if you recognize who you really are, when you started to rise. In addition, this is the first teaching that is prohibited. Jesus did not come to earth to undergo worship. It was his intention to reawaken what religion had been attempting to dormant. It was not his desire to have disciples who bowed. He desired mirrors that could remember his face, for the reason that this is the holy conundrum. It wasn't only that he was pointing for God. It was a revelation of what God appears to be like inside of a human being. Also, if you have ever pondered the reason why his message was so perilous, it is because it broke the intermediaries within the system. There will be no more priests. Eliminate all rituals. You are no longer separated from the divine by any gates. Not even this. Look inward. A mind that is still. Remember to do so. However, power is always afraid of those who have woken. With the key in hand, Rome proceeded to create a lock. They sold a maze after taking the map with them. The truth was taken by them, and they fashioned it into a throne, and informed you that God was observing from a distance, feeling furious and being distant. On the other hand, Jesus made a shocking saying, "Your own being contains the kingdom of God." Have you noticed it? He did not come with the intention of establishing a religion. He arrived to put a stop to the delusion of individuality. Therefore, if Jesus did not come to worship, but rather to remember, then who exactly are you? Additionally, if the same divine breath that was there in him is still present in you, then why do you feel as though you are so far off from it? To what extent is it possible that they buried the truth not in a tomb, but rather within you? Right now, we are just getting started. Since we delve even farther into the teaching that they feared the most in chapter 2, we can say that heaven was never a goal in the first place. A frequency, a consciousness, and a code were all a part of it. And if you discover how to access it from within, you will understand that you were never locked out of it in the first place. This entire time, you were the entrance. Let's get it unlocked. They told me that after you die, you are taken to heaven. However, what if the most deceitful deception was that heaven was located in a different location? Imagine that you did not make it to heaven. Suppose you were to become it. mainly due to the fact that Jesus never stated that the kingdom of heaven will come into existence after you have passed away. The kingdom of heaven, he replied, is now present inside you. There was no metaphor in this. Mechanics was the issue. This was the secret to the world we live in. It is not later in heaven. Now is the time. Not a cloud kingdom in the distance, but rather a dimension that is concealed within your very breath. Heaven is an alignment, a recall of origin, and a frequency of divine connection that is pulsing within the soul. Heaven is a state of alignment. Also, the door was never located in the heavens. Your ribs are located beneath it. You felt it in your spine through your breath, in the silence that you experienced, and in the pause that occurred between your thoughts. The work that needs to be done is to tune the instrument of the self until it resonates with the frequency of your home, which you didn't really leave behind. However, this horrified the empire, because if you understood that heaven was not a reward, but rather a revelation, if you knew that you may enter at any time without permission, a priest, or payment, you would never again submit to the keys that were held by another person, and you would stop begging for paradise and begin radiating it. The prize was never going to be heaven. It was the power, a field of dazzling knowledge, a vibration that your soul is already familiar with, and a kingdom whose entrance opens the instant you remember who you are. They did, however, rewrite the plot. They told that heaven was far away, that you had to work for it, that you can't get it because you are too filthy, too unworthy, and too human to deserve it. In order to distract you from the cathedral that was located within, they constructed cathedrals outside. Here, however, is the second instruction that is forbidden. Heaven does not exist in the afterlife. Heaven is waiting for you when you finally give up looking for it. The excellent deeds are not rewarded with this. For those who are awake, it is a mirror. It begins the minute that you stop believing the deception that you are separate from God, and the moment that the fight that is going on inside of you comes to an end. Jesus used stories in the form of parables because he believed that heaven could not be described, but could only be personally experienced. The feast that has been prepared but goes unnoticed by the rest of the world is the pearl of great price, the treasure that has been buried in the field. So allow me to ask you this: have you ever touched it in a way that was beautiful, in a way that was still, or in tears that made no sense? Were you unaware that you had never left, that the garden was still there, and that you had been banging on your own door the entire time? Didn't something within, something about this, heaven is not further away? Now is the time. It can be found here. After you have left the cacophony behind, it is the place you go back to. To that end, let them continue to sell the sky. Are you to bring heaven to this place you arrived? However, if paradise is already a part of you, what is it that is preventing you from accessing it? It is a sign that they were successful if you continue to feel guilty about a story that was written before you were born, mostly due to the fact that the earliest lie ever stated was that you are injured. However, what if sin was never a stain, but rather a matter of forgetting? Could it be that the soul was not damned, a cloud of amnesia had just befallen it? Are you still under the illusion that Jesus came to fix you? He did not. He came to remind you, because you were never born in disgrace, you were born radiant. But somewhere along the way, you were taught to turn away from your own light. You were taught to kneel before altars made of stone, yet no one ever told you to ignite the sacred flame nestled inside your ribcage. And why? Because that secret, your inner fire, is something no sermon would dare reveal. You are not made of sin. The ache you feel is not shame, it's the wound of forgetting. They said Eve was the cause of humanity's fall. But what if it wasn't a fall at all? What if in the beginning there was not sin but awakening? What if the serpent wasn't evil but a symbol of deeper consciousness? What if Eve didn't commit the first sin, but opened the first eye because the fruit was never cursed? Awareness was. And awareness has always been a threat to systems of control. Close your eyes, bow your head. That's what they told you. But what if the real calling was to remember, not to repent? Have you felt it, that sudden spark beneath your ribs? That isn't shame. That's your return, a flicker of the divine waking up inside you. Imagine for a moment that the shadows you feared your whole life were actually unclaimed pieces of your light, light you haven't turned toward yet. Imagine you're not here to be saved, but to remember why you came. Because deep within you carry echoes, yearnings that don't belong to this lifetime, memories you can't explain. And the moment you begin to ask, why do I feel this way? You begin to remember where you've been. If your soul has lived before, where has it traveled? And more importantly, why did you choose to return now? Here's a truth the church meticulously removed from its pages. Jesus knew that you had lived before. He spoke of Elijah's return. He asked, who do you say I am not? Because he needed to know, but because you had known him once before. The early Gnostics knew. So did the mystics of the desert. The soul does not come only once. It returns, it learns, it remembers. And when you begin to remember, everything changes. They did this by turning the gospel into a fear trap for a single life. However, Jesus was a mystic who understood the lengthy spiral of the soul, that life is a school and that the body is a garment, that you change is something that he taught. Why therefore would you conceal it? Mostly due to the fact that a soul that is aware that it has lived before and will live again, not susceptible to being endangered by a single death. It is impossible to exert control over a soul that is not susceptible to danger. The early Christians did not consider reincarnation to be heresy. It had been typical. Furthermore, the trip does not start at birth, nor does it come to a conclusion at death. It will continue until the light that is contained within is completely recalled. You have not lived for a single lifetime. In essence, you are a library that has skin, and it is not a coincidence that you are with us at this same moment, considering that it is now time you are recalling. Clicking on this was not a random occurrence. You came here with predetermined timetables in mind and something that you wanted to regain. This moment, however, was chosen by your soul. What is it that you have come to reclaim? The question is, if Mary did recall it as well, why was her gospel buried? Now let's bring down yet another major structure. In the same way that Peter was the foundation of the church, Mary was the embodiment of truth. Not at all she was a prostitute. It was she who was the one who comprehended Jesus on the inside, not only on the outside. She was the one who was initiated. In addition, this caused the early leaders to be filled with fear because her doctrine, which was the gospel of Mary, did not teach obedience. Gnosis, inner understanding, and direct revelation were all taught by it, and there was no need for a mediator. He was referred to as the one who lives by her. He referred to her as the woman who would know. She was more than just a female. In addition to being the one who carried the serpent's knowledge and the womb of the first memory, she was also the one who kept the thread that had been lost. However, the power structures were unable to permit the Holy Feminine to speak with the same amount of light. Therefore, they buried her under lies, but they did not bury her deeply enough, because now her voice is rising for the second time, not from pulpits, but from within you. It is possible that her reverberation is stirring and awakening through your bones if you have experienced a summons to divine wisdom that is not in accordance with any one religion, that does not require belief but rather urges memory. More than just a checkpoint, this is a cloak. Also, if you have already crossed it, please like this video so that it can serve as a beacon for others who are still wondering. Have a say. It is not for us that she is rising. Rather, she is making the echo in the field more active. Not because you want to see more information, but because you want to make a promise that you will never forget. It's not just that you're curious, you are being called. Let's on with our journey, because what lies ahead will completely alter everything. Nevertheless, if Mary was able to recall who she was, why do you still feel so disconnected from her? It's possible that something very old has been deliberately concealing it from you. But it is not a devil at all. It is something that is far quieter and much more harmful than that. Is it possible that the earth is not the center, but rather the reflection? He was aware of it. Mages were aware of it. Jesus was a living example of it. My kingdom does not exist in this world. It was not because he did not accept it that he made this statement. Rather, it was because he recalled that beyond it, this body a robe, this planet a stage, but you are not of this world. The way you entered it was like light entering a mirror, and everything you see is a shadow of something higher, purer, and more genuine, that agony that you have always carried with you. It is not only depression, homesickness is the cause. You've always had the impression that this world doesn't quite fit, That is not unsuccessful. Memory is bleeding through at this point. And the more you remember, the higher you will rise, since the reality is that this realm was never intended to finish you off. Each one a breadcrumb, each one a whisper. It was specifically planned to reawaken you to the anguish, the beauty, and the loss that you have experienced. You came from the light, and you will come back this time as fire. However, this is only the case if you cease attributing the source to the mirror, because you were never intended to be here in the first place. In order to remember, you were brought here. It was a cartoon villain with red skin horns and a pitchfork that they gave you. On the other hand, what if the true adversary was not a creature as such? What if the ultimate darkness was not possession, but rather disconnection, and not possession, but amnesia? Mostly due to the fact that once you forget where you came from, you would believe anything about where you are headed. It was unnecessary for them to ensnare your body. All they needed to do was make your memory muddle you. An exorcism is not necessary for you. It is necessary for you to remember that disobedience was not the cause of the true fall of man. It was a case of forgetting that you were light encoded with stars breathed into by the infinite, and that every distraction, every lie, addiction, and division is designed to keep you asleep. Although they constructed temples out of stone, Jesus referred to the temple that was made of flesh. In this place, they said, confess. It was told by him that the kingdom is within you. The genuine entryway was actually located inside your ribs, but you were instructed to gaze above. Direct knowing is what gnosis refers to. What differentiates reading the water from actually feeling the first drops of rain on your skin is the contrast between the two. It is neither a belief or a doctrine, rather it is an experience that cannot be denied. Direct knowing, inner fire, and sovereign light are the three pieces of information that have been taken away from you. However, suddenly every single one of them has returned. A sermon is not necessary for you. You are in need of recitation. Who is the later going to heaven? It is not constructed out of rungs. The entire thing is a revelation. Every memory brings you one step closer to the goal. Not only should you ask yourself, do I believe, but also, do I remember? As keeping this path concealed is for a specific reason. For the simple reason that the truth is not only inconvenient. To tell a lie is fraught with peril. It was not because Jesus was gentle that he was crucified. Because he roused people from their sleep, Jesus was crucified. And once you come to, you will be misunderstood, ridiculed, and perhaps discarded by those around you. But take note of this. The sensation of pain is evidence. Friction is a sign of flame, and resistance indicates that you are progressing. You are not here to get people's approval. You have come to shed light on the route. And when they make an effort to lighten your light, shine even brighter, because the Christ that is within you does not bow down. It is higher. The lecture that they dreaded the most was this one, whom they buried beneath the ideology, horror, and fire that they had created. I did not say it because it was blasphemy. Rather, it was because it was too forceful. God was said to be above you, outside of you, apart from you, and observing from a throne according to what you were told. On the other hand, the mystics were aware of it, the Gnostics recalled it, and Jesus uttered it with each breath he took. In no way is God a being. God is the very essence of being. You are experiencing the heat in your spine, the calm behind your eyes, and the breath that is in your lungs. Yes, you are not the only one. This is the source waking up out of form. The image of God does not appear in you. The expression, the echo, the current, the flame, and the I am wrapped in skin are all things that represent you. This was a falsehood about separation. The union is the truth. On the other hand, once you stop looking for the divine in places like temples and heavens, you will start to feel it pounding behind your ribs. Worshipping God was never intended for you to learn. It was always intended for you to be God. It is not with arrogance, but rather with reverence, in order to cure the world rather than to govern it. Because once you bring up the divine that is dormant within you, you begin to recognize it in everyone else. And with that, the manifestation of paradise on earth has begun. The question I have for you is this: if Jesus became the Christ and the Christ lives in you, then what are you in the process of waiting for? At this point, you are no longer a seeker. You are a repeat visitor. The kingdom does not extend beyond your reach. You are the one who gives it back. The story does not finish here. Today is your day to rise. This was not merely a form of instruction. The pieces of the map that were concealed within you were fragments. Heaven was never the location of the kingdom. Your breath had buried it deep within you. No, you have never been a sinner. As a result of forgetting, there is only a star. You do not require a book in order to discover the light. To me, you are the light. In the past, you have traversed this road, recognized the call, hear the hushed utterance, died without a sound, and rose once again in reminiscence of the past. Mary Magdalene was aware of it. Jesus was aware of it. Evil was never the true adversary in this conflict. Amnesia was the cause of it. On this planet, no more than the shadow of your beginnings. Are you a messenger who conveys the truth? There is no idol known as the Christ. An activation of a memory code in your DNA is taking place. This is not via faith, but rather through knowledge. Not by bowing to authority, but by embracing the flame within. Yes, there is a cost to this path, but it will only burn away what was never truly you. You don't need to wait for a revelation. You are the revelation. The kingdom isn't some far-off place. It's not something you earn or reach. You are what brings it back to earth. It is your turn to speak now. This is your moment to rise. And now, the remembering begins. The question is no longer, who was he? The question is, who are you becoming? If something ancient stirred within you as you watch this, do not let it fall back asleep. There is a reason this message found its way to you. Now let it become a signal. Let it reach others. Not for vanity, but as a beacon for those who have been forgotten, for the ones still wandering in the dark. Comment below, not for us, but for remembrance, so others will know they are not alone. This isn't a channel, this is a call to the inner church, not built from brick and stone, but from awareness, from light, from the sacred knowledge that has always walked beside you. And this is not the end of your journey. This is where it begins. More truth will find you when your soul is ready. Until then, walk gently, walk aware. And whatever you do, do not forget who you are. Because you are the revelation, and it is you who will return. Remember that.